I have been making daily videos on the YouTube Shorts tab of me talking about toys, and I've been doing a series talking about the Jakks specific 4-inch Sonic the Hedgehog series of action figures. This is the second compilation of micro reviews of those figures. Most of these figures are going to be the deeper cuts, so if you want the names that everybody knows like Sonic, Tails, etc., check out Volume 1. If you're interested in toy content, subscribe to the channel and keep your eyes on the YouTube Shorts feed. Volume 3 will come out much later down the road, like probably 8 months from now. There has to be quite a few more figures released before I can do another compilation like this. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the show. Sonic, Shadow, and Silver all kind of have like a Hedgehog trio going on. And for the Jakks 4-inch figures, when you compared them side by side, Silver is the odd man out a little bit. His head has noticeably different proportion. I feel like it's most noticeable around the muzzle area. That figure also feels a little bit more hard compared to Sonic and Shadow. Sonic and Shadow's noses are actually pretty flexible, and while there is some flexibility with Silver's, it's significantly less. Despite these inconsistencies though, he doesn't feel like he's significantly lower in quality than the rest. He meets the standard that this line establishes. There's nothing really particularly exceptional about him, but there's nothing offensive. If you like Silver, pick him up, but there's nothing crazy happening here that makes him a must-have. The Jakks-specific Knuckles the Echidna figure could stand to use symmetrical arms. For a character who's defined by his boxing gloves, it feels really wrong that only one of the hands is really made for punching. It would have also been nice if the red part of his head used a softer and more flexible plastic, because with the way it currently is, the dreads do limit articulation. This is not a unique problem for this figure, it's a common problem for Knuckles regardless, but it would be nice to see a figure implement that fix. For positives, however, I do like the proportions on the sculpt a lot, and despite it being a Jakks figure with an open mouth, for some reason it doesn't bother me nearly as much on here as it does on, like, say, Amy. The seam lines are also a lot cleaner on Knuckles than a large portion of the other Jakks 4-inch figures. Overall, he's a solid figure that needs 2 adjustments before I recommend him as a must-have. Mecha Sonic, also referred to as Robotnik and Silver Sonic, was one of the 2 main final bosses you faced in the second Sonic the Hedgehog video game. It's nice that Jakks specific with their 4-inch figure line actually acknowledge one of the many variants of Robot Sonics that exist in the series, outside of just, Metal Sonic. And I also love how there's a proper silver reflectiveness used on this figure. Metallic paint definitely helps these things, and they don't come on every single one of these. However, I do have to say, this figure feels a little short compared to the rest of the line. In fact, it feels much more in scale with the 3-inch figures than it does with the 4-inch ones. However, if the scale doesn't bother you, I do highly recommend it. It might not look like it, but there's actually a really solid range of articulation on this thing. Robot characters in this line tend to get a little bit more articulation than organic ones, and this is a pretty good example of it. It would have been nice if the wheels could have rotated a little bit, but whatever. If you're a fan of the classic games, definitely pick up this one. The 4-inch Jakks-specific Dr. Eggman figure has been around for a while. They released it at around the start of the line, and it's been getting re-releases recently. However, I do think that this figure needs a major overhaul, in fact a complete overhaul, before it's re-released again. For starters, the figure is not in scale with the rest of the line. Like Sonic and Friends should be up to his chest maximum. This Dr. Eggman is definitely better scaled for the 3-inch line. However, scale is not the only problem. I have not found a single one of these figures that has its nose painted properly. Sometimes there's too much pink paint blobbing it around near the mustache. However, most of the time, it's not enough, and the tips of the nose and especially under the nose are left completely bare. There's also an attempt at layering a hair texture on his mustache, however it's completely messed up, especially when you compare how perfect the classic counterpart did its mustache texture. Look, until they do a complete overhaul on this guy, I can't recommend him, even if you like Sonic as much as I do. I try not to be too negative on these things, but I'm kind of absent on positives. Look, you don't even need to watch this whole video. I'm going to tell you straight up right here, right now, the Jakks specific 4-inch classic Robotnik is a must-have. It is fantastic. For an articulated figure of this character, I can't think of a more perfect execution without getting to, more expensive price ranges. I absolutely adore the mustache, from its texture to also having the perfect level of flexibility. He has a complete range of articulation: elbows, knees, shoulder, hip, ankle swivel, wrists, head swivel, it's all there. He might not be the most posable guy in the world, but he's also incredibly circular. There's no way the Fat Man could pull off a Spider-Man pose. And the sculpt, this thing just looks like it just just popped straight out of the classic Japanese artwork. There's really not much else I can say. It's just simple, executed perfectly. I can't think of really any better way to translate this guy into 3D. If you're a toy collector and even just kind of a Sonic fan, this is a must-have. It's a fantastic deal. A really high level of effort and quality went into the Agrobo figure in the 4-inch Jakks-specific Sonic the Hedgehog figure line, with seamlessly hiding articulation in the mechanical joints of the original design, as well as providing finer details that oftentimes minifigures in the same line don't go for. The last word you could ever possibly describe this figure as is lazy. The best example of this is that there's actually custom printing at the bottom of the feet, not sculpted texture, but a fully colored decal. It's also worth highlighting that out of all the characters with unique props, Agrobo has by far the largest with his gun. From personal bias, Agrobo has never really been my favorite Sonic character. So due to that, this figure is just inherently not as exciting to me as some of the others. However, from an objective level, if you were to put all the figures on a tier list, he would be in the top tier. I personally consider Robo, Classic Robotnik, and Omega as the best made figures in the entire line. If you're a fan of robot characters, I really do strongly recommend this one. If you have even a mild interest, just buy him right now, dude. The Jakks-specific 4-inch Big the Cat figure is pretty crazy in terms of size for a $10 figure. I've heard some people wishing that he came with either his pet frog, or maybe even a fishing pole, which would be nice, but you have to take into account. For most figure lines, they typically don't do a flat rate for all the characters within the scale range. Usually, it fluctuates a bit for the individual character size. Big the Cat should have either been $12 or $15, not $10. So the fact that he comes that cheap and comes out actually higher quality than most of the other animal characters, I'm not going to complain that he didn't come with his extra props. It would be a cool special edition for the figure down the road, but I'm not going to complain that, they're absent in this original release for this figure. I really think this figure comes with a fantastic range of articulation. The sculpt is on point, and nothing about it feels low quality. However, I will say that the feet is actually a slightly different color than the rest of his body. So a minor issue that prevents me from saying this is flawless, but not something I consider a deal breaker. But anyway, yeah, if feet don't weird you out, I consider him a must-have for a Sonic fan, and a really strong recommendation for people who are more casually into the series. Despite the fact that this figure is a retooling of the 4-inch Sonic the Hedgehog figure from Jakks Specific. Unfortunately, one of the key factors that made me like the original standard version of this character did not translate over to his super form. Due to the yellow plastic being significantly softer than the dark blue, the knee joints don't provide enough resistance for Super Sonic to be able to stand upright. Even when leaning forward quite a bit, the back weight is too much and the knees cave in, bending over and making the figure fall over. So basically the review on Super Sonic is the same as Standard Sonic, except subtract one positive and add a negative. If you want to see my review on Standard Sonic and many other figures in the same line, check out all of them on my profile. In fact, I just dropped a compilation video on my YouTube channel.